Wargaming Tactics 101. In this vlog, we're going to explore the idea of area denial, not from the perspective of any one single system, like Battletech or X-Wing Miniatures Chain of Command, but rather a top-level concept that you can use right away with the system that you're playing. One of the things that I've been pushing up, focusing on, primarily with my Wargaming Tactics playlist here on the channel, is this idea that we all have our favorite war game, but there are fundamentals to every single war game because, for the most part, if you're asking me to pick a number, 90% or so, there are many similarities. One example, the play area. Where's the battlefield or the star field? We see this with X-Wing Miniatures where you have a play area. We see this in Battletech where you have hex maps. We see this with more traditional DBA, DBN, where you have a marked off section of the table. It's an artificial restraint on the game because otherwise X-Wing Miniatures, I'll just fly off the table, fly down on the kitchen floor, fly across to the dining room. You'll never really catch me. So what we see is this idea in wargaming of the battlefield as a snapshot of the narrative, but also forcing you to engage and play the game. Area denial. So area denial, if you think about what's going on, the different components of a war game, you are trying to win the mission. Now, what is the mission? Sometimes it's annihilation. You just go head to head. Other times it might be move into your opponent's deployment zone. There are times where it might be just pick up some point on the map and recon. Lots of different missions, lots of different systems. But all of them revolve around the fact that you need to move around the map. You need to move around the play area with your units. Second to this, of course, is destroying your opponent. Destroying your opponent helps you to accomplish the mission and helps your opponent, prevents your opponent from capturing the mission. So we see this with movement where I want to get into position. I've got my artillery. I want to get them into position. I've got a great unit that can put out a lot of specialized fire, say against tanks, anti-tank. I want to get them into position. So maneuverability is vital with wargaming, even for fixed units. Fritz, what do you mean fixed units? Okay, let's say I have some artillery. Playing a war game, I have artillery. At the start of the game, it's placed on the map and it does not move. Or pulling from Chain of Command as an example, the artillery is considered off the table and it's going to hit a certain point on the table. I decide that ahead of time. We can see this with Battletech too. Moving our opponent into that area. How do we get them to move into that area? Even with the knowledge that they have, that, hey, this is where the artillery is going to come down. How do we get them to move into there? Area denial. So area denial is where you take some units and they are positioned in such a way that if your opponent moves into that area, there's going to be consequences that they're not willing to trade. They're not willing to trade. It's effectively cutting off pieces of the table. Let's look for an example, Chain of Command. Chain of Command is true line of sight. So if I have a tank that I'm moving down the road, moving along the road, if there's an anti-tank team hidden in a building, behind a building, and I know it's there, that's area denial. I have to continue moving down that road. Do I want to risk that? Because they're not even going to kind of hit front armor, side. They're going to wait till I pass and hit rear. And based on how they're set up, they're going to get the strike off with an interrupt before I do. So that's an example of area denial. The range, if we look at that unit, the firing arc of that unit, now in Chain of Command, it's 360, so it projects out a 360-degree bubble. If it was just forward arc, X-Wing Miniatures, forward or rear arc, or we're looking at Wings of Glory, forward or rear, depending on what we have, that arc is the area of denial. To move into that, there are consequences that one is going to have to face. Now, I have three options with that area denial. First option is, hey, I'm lucky. I trust the dice gods. I'm going to roll up there. You're going to miss, and then I'm going to machine gun you. Maybe. Possibly. Probably. Let's see what happens. Is that the best tactica? No, but I mean, sometimes you have to trust in bravery or foolishness with the dice. Another option would be I just let it go. I don't go there. Well, blocking me off from mission objectives, blocking me off from the support of that tank, blocking me off, area denial. Likewise, the idea now, okay, I'm going to move in some infantry. I'm going to pull up infantry. I'm going to advance them. They're going to screen it. I will take out that anti-tank team. Yeah, I probably will before you can fire it. But now I've pulled off infantry from another area, maybe a key area on the map that you can possibly exploit. So even when there's ways to work around area denial, there's always a trade-off, and you're always making those calculations. Area denial might be just one little unit sitting somewhere, and it's like, do they want to risk it? Or it could be a massive unit. So now I'm going to pull from Warhammer 40K, my Cornate Glory army. Lots and lots of cultists. The dead cost nothing. Cultists are nothing. Another example might be a Wargaming system, just the lowest quality, cheapest type of troop that you can have, or tons and tons of TIE fighters, something like that. Just minimal cost. I don't want to say spam, but lots and lots. I take these massive cultists and I park them in the center of the table. For my deployment zone, whatever it's going to be, they deploy as far forward as possible. Then they run up to the center and they just hang out there. That's physical area denial. You can blast them away. You can engage them in close combat. They'll do some damage, but they're not going to win. They're going to fold eventually, but they cost nothing. Area denial, I'm physically occupying a part of the board and projecting that out, forcing you to go through them and maybe slow you down. Or look, I can get lucky. Here's the other thing. That much dice, you get lucky. Or you go to the left or right into the waiting arms of my Cornate Berserkers, chain swords, chain axes, bolt pistols, plasma pistols, and all that type of great stuff. So area denial as a way to potentially block off those parts of the table to move your opponent into other areas. So now looking at your system, looking at what you have, how can you utilize area denial? And then, of course, in that moment, making the decision, just go through, see what happens, pull up another unit, or go around.